there's so much happening in our industry. We've got to make sure that our message goes out there, not just about this, but about all the multitude of other challenges which lie ahead for the industry. And, we've been, to use a nautical thing, we've been under the radar in terms of the public consciousness. And maybe we need to get that to change and going forward.
Welcome to the Shipping Podcast, where I meet interesting maritime professionals sharing their passion for the shipping industry and their everyday job. I am your host. My name is Lena Gothberg. Hello, Shipping Podcast listeners, and welcome to the 155th episode of the Shipping Podcast. If you're listening for the first time, hit the subscribe button on the device that you're using. The more subscribers, the higher the algorithms raise us up to the top, and that is where we need to be to raise the profile of the maritime industry. In this episode, you will be meeting the Secretary General of the International Chamber of Shipping, ICS. His name is Platten. The International Chamber of Shipping represents 80% of the world's merchant fleet through its members, and the members are the world's national shipowner associations. These national member associations represent shipping companies from all sectors of the shipowner community. So, owners of dry bulk carriers, oil tankers, chemical tankers, gas carriers, container ships, ro-ro ships, general cargo ships, offshore support vessels, and passenger ships. They are all gathered through the International Chamber of Shipping. So, in short, this is the man to put the hard questions to. I did my very best, and we covered a lot of the questions that are important, and I hope you will enjoy our conversation. Welcome to the Shipping Podcast. Could you please introduce yourself?
Thank you, Lena. My name is Platten, and I'm Secretary General of the International Chamber of Shipping.
And what is your background?
So I've been involved in the maritime industry all my career. I started off at sea as a cadet, too many years back to care to remember, and gained my Master Mariner certificate before coming ashore to work in a variety of operational and managerial jobs. So it's, but always with the sea as a background and ships as a background as well.
How did you get the idea of becoming a cadet? I mean, is there in your family or?
No, there's nobody in my family at all. And I was just in sixth form, just wondering what I would do with my life. And I sent off for some brochures for various things, Merchant Navy being one of them. And in the brochure for the company I went with, which is the Royal Fleet Auxiliary, on the back page, there was a picture of a cadet walking hand in hand with a beautiful girl on the sun-kissed beach. It was like a drawing saying it's not all work, and there are palm trees and things like that. And so that's what piqued my interest. And so life decisions are made on the basis of that.
Yeah, they usually are. Now, my point with asking this is that we are not that good in recruiting people into our industry because they don't know about us. So most people either fall into the industry or it's in a family where there is shipping.
That's so true as well, Lena, and that's something we do have to. It's very interesting. I mean, I've been various maritime colleges, and I always ask when we were allowed to out and visit people, and I always ask sort of the cadets, and I say, how many of you are new to the industry, or how many of you had family members in the industry? And I'd say 80% put their hand up to say they had family members, and I'm a case in point. My eldest daughter, she's a ship's captain on ferries, and my son is in the Royal Navy as an engineer. So there's no doubt that they hear the stories, don't they? And they sort of think, oh, that doesn't sound too bad. But yeah, how we can promote and get more people in and more diverse workforce into it is something which is really important. And as you and I know, it's a great industry. I mean, there's so many opportunities, and you never know how life is going to take you. But I do send to people who come into our industry for the first time, I say, you'll never leave. And that's usually the case.
Yeah, that's true. I just think about all the people who doesn't get to know about us that we need. We might need some new knowledge and new people into our industry.
I think so too, especially the what we're calling the fourth propulsion revolution, as we switch to zero carbon fuels, as more technology takes over, we're going to need a different skill set, a different mindset, I think, for particularly seafarers, but also people ashore. And I think people don't necessarily consider us as a first choice. And over the last, during the COVID, when we've really come to appreciate just what a critical role the seafarers have played in keeping the world supplied. And actually, as an industry, you've probably gained more external media attention than ever before. Let's hope we can translate that as well into showing a positive industry image of our industry, what we can do and how we work together, an essential part of the supply chain.
Yeah, I saw on the website of ICS that there is one part that there is explaining shipping, which is interesting. I don't know any other industries maybe who needs to explain what they're doing.
Yeah, it's really funny. We ummed and ahed about that, but we thought if people are coming to our site, we are complex. Owners, managers, charterers, crewing agents, freight forwarders, everything. This complex, interconnected web of people and organisations, and we try to explain it a little bit in the video.
I think it's a good idea, and I wanted to talk to you about the crew change and all the seafarers that were stuck on their ships or at home when the pandemic hit us.
Yeah.
I understand that one of the problems is that people don't know about the industry, and that is why it's hard to also explain about the seafarers. Everyone knows what a seafarer is, but what the problems get.
Well, what the essential role, their job. I think it's a really good point. I mean, we would basically been living this pandemic since last January, a year ago, when China started. If you remember, China started to shut down towards the end of January before the Lunar New Year. Then we just saw it wave across, and then middle of March, absolute shutdown of the world in terms of travel, and our seafarers were stranded, and there was no hope in getting off. The countries just cut the borders, and it wasn't just getting off, is they were having difficulty getting access to medical facilities and medical help when they needed it as well. So but we came together as an industry like never before, through IMO, through all the regulators, through all the different industry associations, and we really have made the case, I hope, with seafarers, the essential role they do. And we've managed to get some cut through. We've had plenty of coverage in, broadsheets and in the CNN and Bloomberg and BBC World and other TV stations around the world are starting to cover it, because there's a humanitarian aspect to it. And we were able to try and highlight the plight of seafarers. It's when had some seafarers doing 18, 19, 20 months continuous service on board the ships, tired, working all the time. Yet the world still wanted to be supplied, and I felt there was some hypocrisy around, really, and I think one of our problems is we kept on. We didn't down tools. We didn't say we're not doing it. We kept on going, and that's to their credit. And they, we call them the heroes at sea, and absolutely that's true. And all we hope now is that things will get back to normal at some point during this year, and that people aren't put off from coming to sea as seafarers, because they carry out such a critical role.
Yeah, one problem we created in a way by just delivering, because we were just that. They were just there. They were continuing to deliver that toilet paper that everyone was so afraid of losing out on and everything else. So it hasn't become that crisis for everyone in their ordinary life, because the seafarers still continue to do their job.
They did, and we pressed very hard. We lobbied very hard. We came together to introduce protocols, health protocols, and develop them as an industry. And IMO then issued them, and they got out there. We persuaded countries that they must recognise seafarers as key workers. And there was a ministerial summit hosted by the UK in last July, which helped galvanise that a bit more. There was a few countries that always did recognise them as key workers, but not many. We're now up to well over 46 countries recognise them as key workers, but we need a lot more, clearly, a lot more as well. And what we, I think, nervous of now is with these variants of the disease, which is a natural evolution of any virus, and countries starting to shut their borders again, that seafarers are not once again the collateral damage here. And also when it comes to vaccinations, we do need to make sure that seafarers and frontline maritime people are vaccinated so they can keep world supplied. It's going to be ships delivering the vast bulk of the vaccines and the PPE, particularly around the developing world. And we must recognise and prioritise them. And it was great to see that Singapore have decided to do just that, and all 10,000 of their frontline maritime workers are getting the jab.
What was the problem to get the seafarers recognized as essential workers?
I think it was just governments tended to focus on the national populations. I think it was, how do you get that cut through? And it was only by constant lobbying, making the case that you make some progress. I have to say, some countries recognize this early on. I mean, like the UK and some others around Europe as well. They could see that without sea ships, you're not going to move trade. You're not going to move the goods. And therefore, there's a class of people you need to prioritize. They are essential workers. But others took longer getting to that decision. And I think governments collectively let them down. I'm not going to point the finger at any one government because that's not fair.
But I think I have a theory there. And maybe it's because we are in our bubble. We are in the maritime world. We are in IMO, and that is us. And then we have government appointing representatives to IMO, but they are not the same people who works with the health.
Yeah, I think there's definitely, we are, and that's something that the lessons that we've learned is there's so much happening in our industry. We've got to make sure that our message goes out there, not just about this, but about all the multitude of other challenges which lie ahead for the industry. And we've been, to use a nautical thing, we've been under the radar in terms of the public consciousness, and maybe we need to get that to change and going forward.
So going back to, then we also need to show the young people where we are so they come and work with us.
Yeah, definitely. And that it's something that I'm starting to look at where, the future of seafaring, the future seafarer, how's that going to shape? And I mean, the one thing, and that I think we were the only sector who came together like this, and because we've heard from other sectors, the shipping industry came together like never before, unparalleled levels of cooperation between the workers, the unions, the ITF and ICS, all the other industry associations, the IMO, the International Labour Organization, the World Health Organization, and like-minded governments as well. I think to see that level of cooperation is something which is going to be very special to capitalize on moving forward. We've all said that we mustn't let this go to waste. We've made contacts and we've sorted problems out as a result of it because of that personal contact. So that's a real positive from this, but we must build on that coming forward.
Have you got any ideas already now? I mean, how can we change our profile? Because our profile is almost non-visible.
So we've invested quite a lot in communications now in ICS. You've seen, you went onto our website and www.ics-shipping.org, and you'll see it's really updated and hopefully quite modern. We're investing a lot in that. We're investing a lot in how we deal with the media, developing those relationships with journalists and others to get our message across. And the interesting thing is they're starting to realize we've got stories to tell. And that captures the interest, not just in the business, but the social and all the other environmental issues as well. So we are starting to invest in that. And maybe we didn't before enough, as an industry. We didn't. It doesn't come for free. It needs a lot of human capital and then investment as well on top of that to be able to get the message. But I think that's something that we'll do far more in the future. Certainly, we've set it as one of our real strategic ambitions is to sort of build the profile of the industry. We've all been to industry events where people say, "Oh, no one knows what we do," and now we've got to do something about that.
Good. Finally, maybe I can stop asking that question to all my guests. Then I've been doing that for almost 6 years now, and I have got a few answers which are good, but most people do not understand how we can become more visible. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, but it also needs people in the industry to come forward and be prepared to be interviewed and prepared to stick their head above the parapet as well. So, the journalists and media, they need people to sort of come forward as well. So it doesn't happen by just osmosis or something else. It does need concerted effort. And I sense there's much more appetite for this now.
I agree. I think maybe we need to pinpoint a few of our heroes first and then more to follow afterwards.
Yeah. Yes.
Because otherwise it's, in the maritime media, I think it's almost the same people who are interviewed at time over time in a way, because that are the people who are interesting to listen to. You are one of them, of course, because you're representing so many ship owners associations.
There is, but there's space for everyone to take part in this, and our shipping press and media is great, brilliant, and what you do is, but we've also got to get beyond that as well. We've got to get onto the news digest of the general sort of society, because they influence the politicians who then ultimately will influence the regulation that affects our industry, whether it be emissions trading schemes or greenhouse gas reduction or this crewing crisis and key workers.
So what else has changed due to the pandemic? Have you seen any other changes? What will be the new reality for us when we have the vaccine and things go back to normal and we can start hugging each other again?
I think the shipping industry is going to have a series of very good parties when we can all actually make. We are a very social industry, and we thrive on those personal contacts. And I think we're all missing that now. So, and we can't wait for that to happen. I think there's been an acceleration of some of the digitization. I find it hard to say that word, but and I think that trend will continue. I think we've all learnt as well is that we can work more remotely than perhaps we did before. Perhaps there'll be less but more targeted meetings when we meet face to face. I think we've just from our own life, and I think we've learnt that sort of efficiency gains. I don't think I'd like to think we'll capture and we'll put in. I mean, I go to meetings all over the world from the comfort of my little study here. And that's been interesting.
So last year when I said, I'm working from home, and everyone said, don't you feel lonely? And I was in this position already then, and they didn't understand. Now they do understand that I meet the world from my little office. And I think we all have had that realization in a way.
Yeah, without a doubt. And that's been one of the pluses of this, there's no doubt about it, being able to make those contacts. I think the trick is now using them as we go forward, because, meanwhile, the climate change crisis still is happening. We have a very ambitious agenda to reduce industry emissions by 50% by 2050, which with a 30-year lifespan of a ship means we've got to start introducing zero carbon fuel ships at scale in the next decade. That isn't very much time. So all these challenges still remain. They haven't gone away just because of the pandemic. And, that's a lot of work. We've been doing a lot of work on that in ICS to keep that agenda going, as have many other people as well, of course.
Yeah, but I mean, digitalization could help there as well, I understand.
I think so, yeah. I mean, there's no doubt with the stuff, the work going on, that's going to be a big part of it. But it's a blend of everything, isn't it? I don't, we heard all about autonomous ships. Personally, I think they're some way off because, you still need to maintain ships and you still need to have all of that. So, but I believe there'll be more sort of monitoring, more sort of sensors, more, that sort of remote type monitoring of what's happening on the ship, optimizing routes to make sure you steer well clear of weather systems and the like. So I think that's that will change and develop and get even more as the years go on.
So what reports do you get from your daughter? She's a master mariner. She's on a ship.
She works on a ferry that goes between Southampton, which is on the south coast of the UK, and the Isle of Wight. So she drives reasonably large vehicle passenger ferries. But so she kept on working right the way through the pandemic because it was an essential lifeline service, but said it was rather quiet in the first few months in terms of passenger numbers, but always delivering the freight. So she's had it's been to her, it's almost been like normal. She's gone to work. But for others, of course, it's been a vastly different experience.
So do you have the discussion on autonomous ships over the dinner table, or?
Not. It only bore the rest of my family, if I'm honest, Lena. But when my daughter and myself and my son would start talking about it, you can see everyone else starting to yawn a little bit at that point.
That's where you have to explain the shipping industry to them.
Yeah, I'll just send them the video. They can all watch before. I think it'll be a gradual thing, but there's no doubt that digitization is going to make a vast difference in terms of you want ships to be used the most efficient way possible. So you want them to leave a port, travel and arrive in a port, and it's a continuous seamless process. You don't want ships steaming at huge speeds to go and then lie at anchor for 3 weeks. So it's things like that. I think this digital revolution in terms of systems on board ship, how ships are monitored, how they're routed, how they're loaded, is going to make us more efficient. But it won't be enough. We still need to develop the new technologies to get to zero carbon.
Yeah, But there is so much within that industry revolution. There's the AI, it's the machine learning, it's it's so many things, and 5G and all of that. I live in Gothenburg, and here is all the autonomous cars. They are sort of centered here, and we got Ericsson and the 5G, and we got all of that. So I see a lot of exciting things, and I think, wow, this is going to go big in the maritime industry when we get to see the results from it.
Mm-hmm. I think you're right, yeah.
So where are we on our way to the new reality? I mean, going back to that.
Our focus, the IMO have been debating the short-term measures. These are the so-called low-hanging fruit to get emissions to be reduced. They went through at the last MEPC, and for some they were too progressive, to others they didn't go far enough, which probably means that they're about right. That nothing's perfect, but those are now being finalised, and there's some very, very challenging things in there in terms of carbon intensity indicators, how you grade ships from A to E in terms of the energy efficiency, the energy management plans. All these things are going to be rolled out, but actually the big prize then has to turn to how do we get zero carbon fuel ships. And the trouble is, we don't know yet what they'll look like in terms of what fuel they're going to burn. Are they going to be burning hydrogen? There's plenty of advocates for hydrogen. Is it ammonia? There's certainly a place for batteries. You see them around in Sweden as well, battery-powered ferries and the like. And on the short sea, you can certainly see there's ability there. But how do you get the transoceanic voyages done? Where do you store the hydrogen? Is it produced? How is it produced? Where do you put the infrastructure in place to allow this all to happen? And it can't just be ship owners, cannot be the ones alone who can solve this problem. It has to be a societal effort to do it. We put forward as an industry a research and development fund proposal, International Maritime Research and Development Board, which had its first hearing at the last meeting of the Marine Environmental Protection Committee back in November, and it goes forward to another hearing in June, the next meeting. And we're working on, heard the feedback from member states about how they see it, and to put forward even firmer proposals there. But we believe research and development is absolutely essential. It's, there's talk of market-based measures, and we're not against them in principle at all, but it has to be able to drive behavior. And you can only drive behavior, there's technology to be able to drive behavior towards, otherwise it sort of defeats the purpose. So it's really important that we get that research and development, and we get it going now. And we believe that our research and development fund can be up and running in 2 to 3 years, within 2 years of it being approved.
I think it's so cool to let them loose, all these researchers and developers, because, the sky is the limit once they start doing that. We saw that when we had the SECA regulations here in Scandinavia. First everyone said that can never happen. The sulfur levels can't be that low, and we can't. And then when it was decided, all these thinking caps got on them, and they started to think. And for a while there, we were the center of LNG, because that was the first alternative fuel that came out of that, and that was so cool to see. Everyone pitched in what they knew and what they could do, and wow. Yeah, I'm waiting to see what that R&D fund is going to do. Best of luck with it.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You have seen a few changes. You say that you have been working for several associations and organizations. So what are the biggest changes that you have seen during your career in the maritime industry?
Well, I think starting off at sea, I think the life at sea has changed. We did, just in the equipment on board the ships, you go to the bridge of a modern ship now, it's like something out of the Star Trek Enterprise. Whereas when I first went to sea, it was a bit more basic than that. You had a radar set, they were standalone, they weren't integrated with electronic charts or anything like that. It was paper charts. You often did your loading plans by hand. You had stability calculators, and you did all sorts of things to make sure the ship. And you've seen that technology just go from strength to strength on board ships. I just think, I think we've all seen, society's seen a massive shift in terms of. I remember when mobile phones came out, and there were big clunky things, and now we've all got these handheld devices which connect us to the world, and we can either do this interview on it, or we can, write emails or the like. So there's been huge changes. I think we've all seen, and the industry has been part of that. And just see, as you say, LNG coming in. We've had other forms of propulsion as well, and just all that technology is and much more efficient designs and still more to come.
And there are more women in the industry.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think there's enough, to be honest with you. I mean, I speak from a position of strength, is that my daughter's at sea, so at least I can say that. But it's dire in terms of numbers, in terms of percentages, and why is that? We need to look very carefully at that. We've set up a diversity inclusion panel and a women's panel in the ICS to try and look at these questions very hard and see what solutions there might be out there as we can do as an industry. It's really interesting. There's a company in the UK called British Telecom. They have a thing called OpenReach, which is effectively the broadband, and they did an experiment with trying to make a gender neutral advert. So rather than call engineers, there were network coordinators. And rather than say you need to be able to roll your sleeves up and get your hands dirty, it was sort of, we need people with great organizational skills who can control. And they found by just changing language to be gender neutral, they attracted far more applicants, female applicants, compared to before. So I think there's a lot more we can do as an industry to try and make it as an attractive industry as possible for all people to be able to join.
I totally agree with you. And my experience is that, it's the young ladies, the young women who are 35 plus, who brings the new technology and knowledge about that into our industry, because it hasn't been any man doing that before. So it's an open field. You can just try and, trial and error on that one.
It is, and it's also, it needs to start at quite an early age, especially they're called the STEM subjects, science, technology, those subjects. And I was speaking to some female cadets and I was saying, so how did you come in? And they would say, well, we often have to make our choices of subjects at the age of 14. I don't know if it's the same in Sweden, but you tend to start getting streamed towards your future about that sort of age. And it's peer group pressure. She was saying, all my friends wanted to do drama, this, that, the other, but I wanted to do sort of the more practical sciences and the like. So even at that age, we have to somehow get our message that it's okay. It's the industry to make it attractive at the right age so that people make the right choices. It's too late almost by the time they've left school.
I totally agree. I think we needed to start with preschool almost.
Yes, and sell the virtues of it. So I think there's a lot we can do as an industry, a lot we can do to attract talent and the right talent, and we're going to need it. And at the moment, we're effectively missing out on 50% of the world's population.
Mm-hmm. And there will be a sort of a lack of seafarers.
Yeah, I think, there will be shortages, and it's what skills they're going to have. Then that's, to me, the debate we need to have now is because we need to start thinking about that now, which is why, it seems a lifetime ago, but it was only a couple of years back, we made the case for a revision to the certification, the STCW, because we need to start looking at that, to review it, to see what we need to put in place to make sure that when we do have the new technology coming in, which we've just talked about, we've got people with the right skill sets to go and to man the ships and to run them safely.
And the people in the land organization as well.
Yeah, definitely.
They need to know the outcome of what comes out of the technology to them. How do you see the future of the maritime industry in general?
I think we've got a very bright future. There's no doubt that trade will still happen. And if you have trade, you're going to have ships. So whatever it is, shipping has got a great future. It's how it will look is going to be the challenge and the interest. And I think that's the exciting bit, isn't it? But I think we're going to see more change in our industry in the next 10 years than we have probably in the last 100, perhaps.
Yeah. I think it's exciting to be here right now.
It is. It seems like the pace is absolutely relentless. It doesn't. Sometimes you just think, everyone let's just stop for a bit. But that's maybe a luxury we don't have, and we just have to keep on going. But it's right. It's certainly an exciting time to be industry, and I think we've seen the industry show the best of ourselves as well in terms of keeping supplies going. The seafarers and the ships kept on supplying the world right the way through this pandemic.
So what is the difference between working for the UK Chamber of Shipping and the international arena for you? Because that is where you came from 2 years ago, 2.5.
That's right. 2.5 years ago, I came up from the UK Chamber. It's a different set of things, and it's the ICS is much more taking the overall international look at regulation to IMO, ILO, to hopefully promoting our industry on an international basis where the sort of individual national ship owners associations, obviously domestic legislation and promoting the industry within their own sort of shores is the differences really. But there's lots of similarities as well. And the great thing about the ICS, I think, is our national ship owning associations. They are the strength of the ICS, because that way we are networked into so many different governments and so many different bodies as a result of that we get that strength from that sort of network.
What is the best thing about being the Secretary General for ICS then?
I'm not sure at the moment. It's a lot of hard. I think it's so serious. It's getting to meet so many lovely people from around the world, and then that's a joy and a privilege to be able to speak to, and make friends, hopefully friends as well, with people from across the world, which you would never normally expect to be able to do you? So I think that's one of the great joys of it, and being able to sort of hopefully represent the industry in the right way. That's also a great privilege as well.
So who do you think I should talk to the next time? Who do you think I should interview in the Shipping Podcast?
Well, they tell you that Lee Hoon, who's the chief exec of the MPA, she's good and quite a really good role model. People like Graham Henderson from Shell, he's a good man to do, because he's very good, especially when he talks about safety, because he's very passionate about that and the safety side of it. Jeremy Nixon, chief executive of One, he's very good, as is Graham Westgarth, who's the chairman of V-Ships. They're all good and they don't mind. Hugo de Stoop is CEO of Euronav. I don't think he's shy of doing some of these things like this. So there's any, if I think of some more names, I'll let you know. But there's any other. And of course, there's Keatak as well. I mean, he's very passionate about this, and I'm sure he'd be amenable to a podcast.
So I have, I've done 155 now.
That's right. Well, keep on going. They're well listened to, which is good. You must get some satisfaction from that.
Yeah, I didn't know that when I started. I just realized that there is no podcast in this industry.
Mm-hmm.
So I was also able to buy the domain of shippingpodcast.com
mm-hmm.
and just start out. And all of a sudden, people are downloading it everywhere, more or less.
That's great.
At least in 180 countries, which is great.
That's excellent. All from the comfort of your home. Or your
from my home, which is great. Yeah. Thank you for taking the time, Guy, to speak to me.
You're welcome. No, it's been a pleasure, Lena. It really has been.
Thank you, Guy. I see how many things you got on your plate, and in a way, they are all urgent, and they all need your attention right now. But since I'm engaged in raising the maritime industry profile, I will especially keep an eye on how you fulfill that strategic ambition to raise the profile of the maritime industry. If you need any help, you know where to find me. Meanwhile, I am busy raising the profile of the Shipping Podcast. I hope you know by now that I have started a bi-weekly newsletter where I present facts about the podcast, future guests, and even if all episodes are evergreen content, some of the previous episodes, you might have missed some of the best ones. Maybe you didn't have the time to listen to them, but I will give you the inspiration to go back in the catalog and find the nuggets. In the newsletter, I also have a section about projects and initiatives that I spend time on looking into. If you want to receive the newsletter to your inbox, go to the website shippingpodcast.com and find the subscribe button. This was it for this time. I also have things on my plate that need my attention. So until the next time, from me to you, over and out. Thank you for listening to the Shipping Podcast. Don't forget to tell everyone that you meet that there is a Shipping Podcast available and that they should download it and listen to the maritime professionals who are sharing their passion for the shipping industry.